Hey guys, welcome to the Movie Podium. Today I'm going to go over the recent documentary of the Brat Pack.
If you were coming of age in the 1980s, the Brat Pack was near the center of your cultural awareness.
I had a few initial thoughts about this film. I'm pretty torn about my feelings towards this movie. There's a part of me that really enjoyed the nostalgic aspect of it. I mean, I grew up with the Brat Pack.
When you grow up, your heart dies.
And John Hughes and all the movies that really almost felt like a rite of passage as a teenager.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
And you know, I was a late 80s baby, so these movies really resonate with me. But on the other hand, it felt really self-serving, especially from Andrew McCarthy, who was really the guy who headed up this documentary. I felt that he was the lost child of this group and was trying to pat himself on the back and make himself feel like he had done something with his life, which is fine. But clearly they had their moment in the sun, and I don't think anybody looking back thinks negatively of that group.
Why did we take it as an offense?
Well,
As
'cause
opposed
you're
to
called
like
a brat.
because we were young.
We're
If we're-
afraid we were brats.
Maybe that is something that haunts him, but if you watch the movie, it kind of goes through, and by the end, he has this realization that he has etched his place in the world and in terms of popular culture. Can't tell if it's a pat on the back or self-reassurance. I'm not really sure, but that kind of turned me off. I also wanted to know where Molly Ringwald was.
Chronologically, you're 16 today. Physically, you're still 15.
And the ending I really didn't enjoy with not getting to talk to Judd Nelson. Like, is there going to be another one? Why did we leave off on him just giving us the idea that he's going to talk to Judd Nelson as opposed to actually hearing from Judd Nelson? So overall, I probably give it a B-. I like that he tried to reconnect with some of his old friends. I mean, I know a lot of times when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you have all these great memories with some really good friends, and then you know, life happens, and so you don't get to talk to them anymore.
I've never talked to anybody about what that was like.
I understand 30-some years later you want to rehash some of those old memories with good friends who experienced something similar. And again, as a fan of this era, and I loved these movies growing up, I thought that was fun. I just wish there was more to it, and again, I felt like it was missing without some of the main characters, mainly Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald. My favorite thing about this movie was probably the soundtrack. You had Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart. And The Cure's Just Like Heaven. Not to mention a lot of other 80s hits and maybe lesser known at that time, which is kind of funny because they were in the mainstream and some of the songs that they played weren't necessarily mainstream, but I absolutely love the soundtrack of this movie. And so I enjoyed that. My least favorite thing about this movie, I kind of already touched on, but it's the lack of Molly Ringwald.
I'm really sorry that article had to come out.
Now, Andrew McCarthy does try to contact her,
Hey, Molly.
but we don't get to see her, and she's the queen of the Brat Pack. She's in Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club. Growing up, when I think of the Brat Pack, I mean, she was one of my first crushes. I thought she embodied that era, and she was so good in those movies. To not get that payoff with him and her, especially if you're a big Pretty in Pink guy, I felt like that was a big missing part. Not to mention the lack of Judd Nelson, but not having Molly Ringwald was definitely something that I think dropped the ball in this documentary. So who won the movie? Normally when we do this, it's a fictional movie, and so it's widely an opinion-based answer. In this case, I gotta say, it has to be Andrew McCarthy.
On June 10th, 1985, New York Magazine published Hollywood's Brat Pack.
Not only does he get to pat himself on the back and that he is part of something that is bigger than himself, you know, something that has etched its place in pop culture history.
I mean, I'm not going to say we were the Beatles or anything.
Well, we didn't fill Shea Stadium. There were moments.
We could have.
But he also got to put a stamp on something else. He really hasn't been relevant in quite some time. This kind of brought him and the group back in the forefront of our conscious minds, and also introduces him and his group to a new generation. I know the way that the algorithm works with Hulu and YouTube and all these different streaming platforms is that if you give them one piece of content, like in this case, this Brat Pack documentary, Hulu's going to start listing, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, and so on. And so him and that group definitely benefit from this in many ways. And so I think Andrew McCarthy won this movie. Whether I think it's self-serving or not, different story. And lastly, we usually have a podium list for either the top billed cast members, or in some cases, we'll do a podium list for what year that movie was released. Was it a top 3 in the year of its respective release? In this case, it's a documentary about the Brat Pack. And so I decided to list my top 3 Brat Pack movies. Number 3, Breakfast Club. Number 2, St. Elmo's Fire. And number 1, Pretty in Pink.
And this is an incredibly romantic moment, and you're ruining it for me.
So there you have it. My thoughts on the Brat Pack documentary. Let me know your thoughts on the documentary, any memories you have growing up, and your top 3 Brat Pack movies. Don't forget to like and subscribe this channel, and I hope to see you soon. Movie Podium out.